things are getting really epic in my at-home campaign. They're at levels 17 and 18, so as you can imagine, it's really hardcore. The stakes are really high. The encounters are just nuts. They're just insane. And I just felt like talking about it. I feel pretty inspired to talk about it. There has been war erupting across much of the world for a time. The world is called Ikoria. It's the same world in which my live stream campaign takes place. The live stream campaign is a land of dreams and nightmares. It started a few months after this current campaign here at home, which is called Age of Requiem. Actually, the campaign used to be called City of Mazes, as it is centered around Bazagon, which is a metropolis island that's like the hub, the last bastion of civilization in the known world. But there was a big campaign shift. Really, the campaign ended when there was essentially a total party kill, except for one character, one central character. He, through skill and luck and roguish shenanigans and probably fate, was able to escape alive. And so he went on, the players made new characters, and this was already at like level 15, I want to say. And so we just like transitioned it or segued it into this other campaign, Age of Requiem, which just continues with the same storyline, just coming from a bit of a different angle, originating in a different realm. So Ikoria, yeah, this world of mine I've been developing for a while. You've probably seen it on Land of Dreams and Nightmares. It's a world in which there are cyclical wars or great cataclysmic events. The gods, when they are alive, they are physically present in the world. So there was a time in which the gods all walked the world, or flew the world, or swam the world. And then there was a massive war, there were cataclysms. All the gods currently are dead. Their corpses, or their true idols, as they're called, can be found at different temples throughout the world. Bazagon has the Temple of Gates and a couple other locations which house the true idols, these like great petrified giants and skeletons and calcified corpses and some other odd mixtures in there as well. Now, of course, a god cannot truly be dead in the purest sense of the word. Their spirits kind of discorporate and go into a weaker, latent state, and then they go out to these outer planes, as you might know from like the great wheel cosmology of standard D&D, which in my setting, these outer planes are actually pretty small planes. They're like condensed essence of the gods' domain powers and portfolios. So the session last night was really intense. There's been war racking Ikoria for a while. Bazagon is like the central hub, and you know the various sources of power throughout the world are vying to dominate it. Bazagon's been controlled by different factions over the years. Presently, it's been the Great Four, the Xanthos Throne, which are merchant kings, diplomats, or aristocracy. There's the Xanthos, no, I'm sorry, that was Xanthos Throne. There's the Argus Legion, which is a militaristic group. They are the administrators of the Grand Colosseum. They are beast trainers and monster hunters. They're also the great eye at the top, the Tower of 100 Eyes that keeps vigil over the city. There's the Melissa's Hold, which is based out of the Royal Crypt. They follow Mitra, who is a duality goddess of life and death, of tombs and wombs. They are a very priest-like order. They keep to crypts. They also have a plantation that grows a lot of the food of Bazagon. There's the Vixfoy Carnival, which actually they are fallen and dispersed by this point in the campaign, but they followed a god of revelry and rioting and tricks, like a trickster god, a hedonism god. So there's been war breaking out across the world for a time. Bazagon is like the great prize, the delicious apple at the center of it all. Garyon, the archdevil, has taken over Stygia. He has brought Cold Steel, his citadel, into the world, into Jaya, this like desolated, post-apocalyptic desert realm which part of it now is cast into like this frozen desert or cold desert. His infernal galleys have been sailing for Bazagon for a time. He has all kinds. He has a devil army. He has some lieutenants like Arrhenius's, ice devils, and Orthon, this like hunter predator devil. There is the old party from the original campaign called Phantasmagencia. So when I said they total party killed, well, actually there was an auxiliary party as well. In addition, there was one of the main members from the main group, Elka Winterheart, who was taken by Geryon the Archdevil and his forces, his devils. He also has a band of Yugoloths in his service, as well as a coven of hags. So Elka at one point actually got taken by them. She was an Eldritch Knight, and she was transformed into a sort of Hell Knight, but from Stygia, so a cold hell. So she is a Stygian Eldritch Knight. So the auxiliary Phantasmagencia party from the City of Mazes campaign, they are evil enemies, or at least aligned with devils, so that's pretty evil, right? And they have been sailing for Bazagon. Geryon himself has an artifact that he has constructed, a weapon of mass destruction, also known as an Alabon. These have been used at different past wars in Ikoria and just absolutely wreak havoc across the land. Mass destruction in the arcane sense. Geryon put together this artifact. It's called the Void Star. It's this pulsating orb that seems to suck all light yet all darkness simultaneously. He was able to construct it with his own ingenuity, with the help of some of his more artifice-inclined devils and a group of artificer Durgar. Now, the old party, Phantasmagencia, has something to do with this. They were in Jaya for a time, and they were getting tangled up with these Yugoloths, battling at this Yugoloth, we'll say, underground tower dungeon called Fiend Spike that had like punctured into the world. Later, Cold Steel did the same thing. And in order to get through the force wall wards to get into Fiend Spike, they stole from these Duergar and stoned the last of the stone giants this orb of a sphere of elemental earth. The Yugoloths ended up stealing this from the party as well, so it got taken to Geryon. The sphere of elemental earth. There was a sphere of annihilation in Fiend Spike as well. That was brought to Geryon. And Geryon, in conquering Stygia and defeating Levistus in Hell, took the sphere of elemental ice. So he used these three things, along with the Duergar artificers, to construct the Void Star. And so they're sailing to Bazagon. He's contacted the Great Four. The Xanthos Throne and the Argus Legion have aligned with Geryon. So they've got this hellacious alliance going on. They have their sights set on dominating not only Bazagon, but the entire known world. They want to end the endless cycle of wars and cataclysms and clashes between power entities, and just set up a stable civilization throughout the world, dominated by an archdevil at the top and probably some tendencies toward corruption and oppression, but a stable world nonetheless. Now, on the other side of things, we have the current party, which is from Naperna, which is the northernmost realm in the world. It's even farther north than Drekengrim. We have their party, the Frelsari. They're aligned with some powerful, a northern army. They have Anji, who is that monk that survived from the original Phantasmagencia party. They are also aligned with the Melissa's Hold, those followers of Mitra. They are aligned with the mages of Dwemerkor, little inspiration from Forgotten Realms there. They're aligned with the Labyrinth Lord, who is this interesting, highly powerful figure. He's either a high-powered wizard or an archfey. No one's quite sure what he is. And he is actually the old architect that built a lot of the mazes and labyrinths that compose Bazagon, the City of Mazes. Who else do they have on their side? Oh, they have from Jaya the Chaste Redoubt, which is this mountain monastery with many interesting figures there, including the great old ones, these like wise masters that are these ascended human-like things from a prior age, yak folk, pilgrims from across the plains, and an ancient dragon known as Grey Wind. So we have these two really powerful sides that have been clashing in Bazagon. Geryon and the Devils and Phantasmagencia have been sailing on these infernal galleys with the Void Star. So the party members are Anji, this monk that I told you about. He's actually part rogue and ranger as well. We have Raven Eye, which is a Hexblade warlock whose patron is Deep Drinker, aka Dagon. There's Stragor, who is a human paragon. Paragon is a class that I've been developing myself for quite some time. It's essentially in a beta test phase now. Yoni Bashi, who is a drow bard, he was in the original Phantasmagencia party. Due to a drawing of a deck of many things, he drew the dungeon card and was actually imprisoned in the prison of the Labyrinth Lord for quite some time. He was freed after a long period of trial and purgatory-like experiences to aid in the fight against the Xanthos throne and Argus and the Archdevil, this whole infernal army. And we also have a couple other minor members, like there's Twyla, which is Anji's sister. They're half-elves. Anji, by the way, wears a mask. He has always worn a mask, and there's something mystical about this mask. Eventually they came to figure out that the mask actually is the spirit. This is the soul, and it's existed for quite some time, just in different physical vessels carrying it, different people throughout time. And Anji has long had visions of the mithril dragon, which is this old dragon god, which, like all the other gods, was slain at some point in time and has been trying to reincarnate back into the world. And he keeps having these visions of the mithril god, and it gives him commands from time to time, but it's elusive and a bit mysterious, of course. There also is another god which actually has reincarnated. It's Mitra, the goddess of the Melissa's Hold, the devourer god, the life-death god. She sort of resembles a Naga. She's this gargantuan snake or worm-like body, and she has a vaguely human-like head. So back in the early levels of the City of Mazes campaigns, they were beneath the Royal Crypt, beneath the Melissa's Hold area, and they were in this dungeon called Bog Bottom. And they came across a cult of Mitra that had disbanded from the Melissa's Hold and had been living in this womb of the earth, which they considered to be a sacred site, a location of divine power. And one of their priestesses, she was considered to be this chosen one who was going to birth Mitra. They had some prophecy or some idea that she would give birth to the reincarnation of Mitra. One of the player characters, Pyro, who was a dragon sorcerer, ended up in a night of celebration and revelry. He ended up copulating with this woman, and so this dragon spirit character impregnated this priestess. She was married, by the way, and so she later went on to give birth to Mitra. So this goddess was reborn and infused with a bit of dragon soul or dragon blood in her. Now Mitra has gone on throughout this war in Bazagon, and she has eaten enemies. She's eaten an aspect of Xanthos, the god of the Xanthos throne, and so she has grown and absorbed power. She still has a bit of a childlike innocence about her, as she's still pretty young, but she is developing in power, and they think soon will come out of this larval stage and be at a full god level power. So we have the Frail Star. We have Anji, this monk multiclass. Raven Eye, the Hexblade follower of Dagon. Stragor, this paragon who has a mentor of Mana Flame, and he has something to do with trying to figure out what happened to Illis the Lantern, this god of knowledge and illumination and arcane. Yoni, the bard, and the few other minor characters, and all the allies and NPCs. So there was a huge battle in the district of the Argus Legion that the Frelsari was leading the charge on, and there was a simultaneous battle in the district of Argus that the Hands of Mitra were taking part in, trying to get a lockdown on the city before Geryon and all the devils arrive and literally hell breaks loose. Geryon with his Alabon Void Star weapon of destruction, bear in mind. So the Frelsari at the Argus Legion, those battles all pretty well went in their favor. They lost a fair amount of troops. They suffered some casualties to their units, but the party themselves was just devastating the foes. When you get into really high level D&D, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, those like last 5-6 levels or so, it's really nuts. I'm telling you, the player characters they're demigods. They have so many abilities and such strong spells. They have so many different options and resources and reactions and magic items. It's really just, you really have to challenge them with just obscene encounters. Those guidelines in the Dungeon Master's Guide in terms of building encounters, they really just go completely out the window. And if you follow that, I'm telling you, the encounters are just going to be cakewalks for the party. You basically have to use what is described as deadly encounters to even give them a challenge. And you can essentially have the party face about anything. Now, obviously, there's going to be some limit in there, but it's intense. It's really intense. So the party fights through hordes of enemy troops and enemy siege weapons, trained monsters and beasts, the Arch Sentinels, which are these really powerful fighters and high priests and paladin of Argus, the Eye of Argus, which like dispels and reveals invisibility and blasts with high-powered magic missiles. They take the Tower of 100 Eyes. They take one of the main gates. They eventually take the Argus Citadel. So they've got this plan, right? Geryon's going to arrive with the Void Star. So the plan that they've been working all along is that Greywind, this ancient dragon from the Chase Redoubt, which is the fastest thing in the world, is going to be in hiding with Mitra, the goddess of devouring, in his clutches. And when Geryon lays to with his galleys and readies to deploy this like floating orb Void Star thing, Greywind is going to swiftly come out of hiding with Mitra, who's going to devour the Void Star. That's the only thing they can think of that can destroy this kind of artifact. Now, they're very worried about what's going to happen to Mitra. They don't worry that Mitra is going to be destroyed. They worry that Mitra is going to transform into this like a massive goddess of destruction and become even worse than Geryon and everything that he was bringing. There were a number of role-playing scenes about this, or there were different points of view. They spoke with Greywind. They spoke with Mitra herself. They spoke with Royce of Lane, the Labyrinth Lord. There's all kinds of debates, and no one's quite sure what's going to happen. Their idea was that after she consumes it, they were going to give her a sacrifice of these, essentially a virgin sacrifice. They were going to be these devout followers of Mitra, pure-hearted, complete, good-aligned characters. They were going to willingly sacrifice themselves to achieve some sort of wonderful afterlife, and Mitra consuming this sacrifice of innocence and goodness, it would balance out whatever corruption was in the Void Star. So the Frelsari and the allies of theirs, Hands of Mitra, they've taken the Argus district. They've taken the Bastion Port. There are 4 main ports in Bazagon. Bastion Port at Argus, Golden Port at Xanthos, Lover's Port at the now fallen Vixfoy Carnival, and the Old Port, which is where the Melissa's Hold was. is rather. So Geryon, they all along they're assuming he's going to be landing at the Bastion port. Well, Twyla, this younger sister of Anji, is up atop the Tower of 100 Eyes. She has this massive spyglass slash floodlight thing. She sees the infernal galleys approaching from the distance. Nightfall is quickly coming. She has sending powers. She's communicating at long distance with the party. She says he is not going to be arriving at Bastion Port. He's going for Lover's Port, the old one where Fantak the Reveler fell, and the Vixfoy Carnival essentially crumbled into chaos. There's a lot of stories involving that as well, but I won't go into it. So the party is with an archmage from Dwemer Corps named Gimboa. Gimboa was actually there when Phantasmagencia, the main party, was defeated. So him and Anji have a little bit of history. So Gimboa uses a teleportation to get all the way to the other side of the metropolis, to the Lover's Port. Grey Wind swiftly carries Mitra there. The Warlock uses this gift of the depths so that Mitra can breathe water, and they're hiding under the water amidst the rubble and the wreckage. By the way, about that Warlock, he'd made a secret deal with Dagon that if Dagon attacked Geryon's galley Reimsting and did everything he could to harry and delay them, Raveneye would then later sacrifice the Labyrinth Lord, betray the Labyrinth Lord, Royce of Lane himself, give him over to Dagon, this demon lord, also known as Deep Drinker in my world, this sort of gargantuan eel, squid, fish monster, demon Lovecraftian thing, collector of sunken treasures, collector of knowledge and secrets, a pretty nasty thing all in all. So Raveneye made this deal with him. He got some extra power, warlock power, because of this. However, Geryon contacted them from long distance, basically saying, this is my ultimatum, surrender, relinquish all the captives you've taken, otherwise I am going to lay destruction to basically half of Bazagon. I'm going to destroy the Melissa's Hold, I'm going to destroy Corrado, which is a massive district of refugees, of commoners, of really the salt of the earth, the folk of Bazagon. And he also revealed to them that he had Dagon captured. Trailing behind his 3 infernal galleys was a massive block of ice. Frozen inside of it was Dagon. And Dagon actually received a little bit of a message, a little sending, which was to Raveneye, his final words before this happened, which was, "You didn't tell me that!" And the sentence didn't finish. So Geryon is arriving. The infernal galleys change course at the last moment. They have these runes of power. They have this arcane propulsion, and the ships suddenly change course, and they are heading for Golden Port, the Xanthos Throne Legion. And Xanthos is still standing. They have been stubbornly and doggedly resisting the hands of Mitra. And it seems like they're slowly losing, but they are still holding their palace, their port, a few of their gates. So Geryon's arriving there. Archmage Gimboa says to the party, I have one last high rank spell left. I can teleport us there. And the party says, do it. Teleport us on to Geryon's galley. Teleport us onto Reimsting. He's about ready to deploy the Void Star. We have to get there now. Meanwhile, Grey Wind, the ancient dragon, has Mitra in his clutches, and they are swimming through the water as fast as they can to get to Golden Port. Gimboa activates his teleportation. The party disappears, reappears on Geryon's galley. As they appear, they are captured in blocks of ice. The same thing that happened to Dagon. Geryon obviously has some manner of warding that when teleportation or planar travel appears within the vicinity of Reimsting, he captures things in blocks of ice. Did I mention he defeated Levistus in Stygia? So the party is frozen in blocks of ice. Gray Wind with Mitra comes flying out of the water at hurricane speeds, probably faster than a hurricane speed. I'm not quite sure how fast a hurricane is, but lightning fast. As the Void Star is like pulsating and Garion's getting ready to unleash it. I mean, he has activated it. It's about ready to detonate, or rather, we should say, pulse out and wipe out the entire party and probably part of an entire district, or rather, entire part of this metropolis. Just as Mitra goes to swallow it, Garyon has this sort of like teleportation jaunt that he does. He and all his possessions, including the Void Star under his direct control, jaunt over to the other side of the galley. Mitra snaps into midair. The party then realizes that there is something on Grey Wind. It grows, and it's actually a lich. It is a lich that they encountered a number of levels back. They defeated him. They took the treasure that he was hoarding, including Solemnadriel, which is this sort of like double scimitar, mithril, legendary weapon, super powerful magic weapon, devil slaying thing. It's like the legendary weapon against devils. Stragor the Paragon is the one who wields it. So they defeated this lich and they killed him. But as you know, with a lich, it's going to reappear within a few days next to its phylactery. And the party searched and searched, and they could not find his phylactery. So his phylactery was inside of Grey Wind, was inside the dragon. He had literally sovereign glued his phylactery inside the internal organs, like in the stomach of this dragon, or the stomach, somewhere in the spleen or whatever. And so when he reformed right next to the dragon. He had himself in a polymorph state, just as a little spider clinging onto the dragon. He is undead. He does not need to eat, drink, breathe, relieve himself. Nothing. He has all the time. That's the point of being a lich, right? So he was clung on to Grey Wind this whole time. So he is channeling his worst of his lich power, trying to transform Mitra herself into like a little maggot, channeling necrotic energy into Grey Wind. Mitra, Grey Wind, the dragon, makes an acrobatics check. Its last chance to do like a flight maneuver, like a 180 turnaround to take Mitra right back to the Void Star as quick as possible. He rolls and exactly gets the DC. 180s. Mitra swallows the Void Star. And that's when things really, really start going nuts. Mitra begins transforming this artifact of tremendous power with various components that created it, starts riddling through her. Her mouth is almost like a vacuum. She's inhaling various things. She inhales Grey Wind, this ancient dragon. She inhales Ezat the Lich and his phylactery. She inhales a number of devils. And so there's a moment of intense power. There's a massive eruption, like a spirit explosion in the sky. She's got all this transmutation magic running through her. And through the explosion, coming from it, is the mithril dragon. The dragon god has been recreated, and all these little hints and pieces and guidances that it has given Anji over time suddenly sync up and make sense. The dragon god is Mitra Satsil, how long Mitra meant mithril. It unleashes its massive breath attack. It expels Garyon, so he is banished back to the Nine Hells, at least for a time now. His ice tombs shatter. The party comes out. Dagon comes out as well. Anji, who's been following this dragon, who's actually this ancient mask which carries a spirit, which is really a piece of the dragon, or at least born of the dragon's body. He raises up into the air and is transformed as well. So he's going to be converting many of his levels over to cleric of the apotheosis domain, which is a domain that I'm working on now, which has to do with ascension into godhood or transcendence into a throne of power. So it has all sorts of things to do with control and domination, as well as ascending, literally ascending, like moving quickly and flying and levitating and passing through walls and such. So that was the end of that session. And we're going to begin next session with a massive encounter aboard these infernal galleys here at one of the ports of Bazagon. And there are many powers all vying together. We have all of these devils, including some very powerful devils, just minus Garyon, and Phantasmagencia, being led by the Stygian Eldritch Knight Elka Winterheart, and the Xanthus throne units which are there. Then we have the Dragon God, a fully powered greater god present right there. We have the party, the Frelsari. We have Dagon. We have a Demon Lord. And the Warlock, which is the Demon Lord's servant. So who is the Warlock going to be fighting for now? There's Archmage Gimboa there. There are some other factions there. But Mitra and Grey Wind have combined together, along with the power of the Void Star, along with a Lich and his phylactery, and the Dragon God is reborn in Ikoria. Oh my gods. This is epic. I don't know what's going to happen in this encounter. It's going to be massive. I'm having to run it actually through map tools on my iMac, because I can't even run it with miniatures on my home table. It's just too much. It's too big. But the map tools is actually working out really nicely. So I'm stoked. We're all stoked. And I hope something you can take away from this, other than just ideas for your own campaign stuff, is that high level is very complex. It is challenging to run. You got to put a lot of more thought into it, but I guess you can spend a lot of thought preparing for any level. But the main thing really is that the player characters can go up against truly epic things that are just beyond what you even consider to be closely resembling something rational. It's really insane. That's it. It's insane. It's completely mind-blowing. Fate of the cosmos, the most powerful entities, multiples of them, armies all clashing simultaneously. How do you run that? I don't know. You just do it. You just go and you do your best, and you tell stories as you go, and you have fun, and you laugh, and at the end, well, whether it turns out to be a catastrophic failure or a resounding victory, at least you had some epic adventures that you'll be able to talk about and tell stories about for the rest of your life. And that is the best thing about tabletop role-playing. Thank you all very much for being a part of this channel. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you sometime soon.